What happens if President Ouattara dares to touch Captain Traoré? Africans across the globe just issued a chilling warning. A storm is brewing in West Africa, and if Traoré is targeted, the military says they will strike back. This isn't just politics anymore. It's war for Africa's future, and one wrong move could spark a military coup. Millions have spoken. The message to Ouattara is clear. Traoré is untouchable, or face the consequences. You won't believe the massive show of support Traoré just received, and what African leaders are now being forced to consider. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more breaking African news. In this explosive report, we uncover growing tensions across West Africa as millions of Africans issue a final warning to Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara. With growing fears of a military coup, African voices from the continent and the diaspora are united in defending Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the revolutionary leader of Burkina Faso. From protests in major cities to powerful statements on social media, the message is clear. If Traoré is targeted, the consequences will shake the region. Are we witnessing the beginning of a new Pan-African resistance? Is Ibrahim Traoré the symbol of Africa's fight against neocolonialism? Watch the full video to find out why Traoré's influence is sparking fear among Western-backed leaders and how the people are prepared to stand up in his defense by any means necessary. 1. Ibrahim Traoré's growing Pan-African influence. Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso's 37-year-old military leader, has emerged as a potent symbol of Pan-Africanism and anti-imperialist sentiment since seizing power in a September 2022 coup. His rise reflects a generational shift in African leadership, resonating with a youth disillusioned by decades of perceived neo-colonial exploitation and ineffective governance. Traoré's influence stems from his bold actions and rhetoric, positioning him as a modern heir to Burkina Faso's revolutionary icon, Thomas Sankara, often called Africa's Che Guevara. Key actions fueling his influence. Expulsion of French forces. Traoré expelled French troops in 2023, aligning with a regional trend seen in Mali, Niger, and Chad, where anti-French sentiment has grown due to perceived failures in countering jihadist insurgencies and historical colonial baggage. Rejection of Western financial institutions. He has rejected loans from the IMF and World Bank, arguing they impose conditions that undermine Burkina Faso's sovereignty. This stance appeals to those who see global financial systems as perpetuating African dependency. Nationalization efforts. Traoré's government created a state mining corporation to control Burkina Faso's gold resources, a move seen as reclaiming national wealth from foreign corporations. Alliance with Russia. His pivot to Russia for security and economic partnerships, exemplified by meetings with Vladimir Putin in 2025, has bolstered his image as a leader defying Western dominance, though it raises concerns about trading one external influence for another. Pan-African appeal. Traoré's rhetoric, emphasizing economic self-reliance and Pan-African unity, resonates widely, particularly among young Africans. Social media amplifies his image through viral videos, memes, and even deepfakes, like a 2024 video of him calling for African unity in multiple languages. His leadership in forming the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, with Mali and Niger underscores a regional push for autonomy from Western-backed structures like ECOWAS. Protests across Africa, from Ghana to Liberia, chanting "Hands off AES" in April 2025, highlight his growing continental influence, challenges, and criticisms. Despite his popularity, Traoré's rule faces scrutiny. Critics, including Western officials like U.S. AFRICOM's General Michael Langley, accuse him of authoritarianism and misusing gold reserves for personal gain, claims that sparked pro-Traoré rallies in Ouagadougou in April 2025. Human Rights Watch reported in May 2025 that Burkina Faso's military killed over 100 civilians, raising concerns about his regime's methods. Moreover, ongoing jihadist violence, controlling 40% of Burkina Faso, undermines his promise of security. Impact. Traoré's influence lies in his ability to channel anti-Western sentiment and Pan-African ideals into a narrative of defiance. However, his reliance on military rule and Russian support risks alienating segments of the population and trading one form of external influence for another, a tension that will shape his legacy. 2. Threat of military coup in Ivory Coast. Recent rumors of a military coup in Ivory Coast, reported on May 24, 2025, reflect growing political and social tensions in the country. While no coup materialized, the speculation highlights underlying instability tied to President Alassane Ouattara's leadership and regional dynamics. Context of the rumors: election tensions. The rumors coincided with concerns over Ouattara's potential bid for a fourth term in the October 2025 presidential election, despite constitutional term limits. His refusal to confirm or deny his candidacy, combined with the barring of opposition candidate Tidjane Thiam, has fueled public discontent. Regional influence. Burkina Faso's junta, led by Traoré, accused Ivory Coast of harboring plotters behind an April 2025 coup attempt against Traoré, escalating tensions between the two nations. Burkina Faso's Minister of Security, Mahamadou Sanaa, claimed the plot was orchestrated from Abidjan, though Ivory Coast denied involvement. Anti-French sentiment. The withdrawal of French troops from Ivory Coast in January 2025, following similar exits from Mali and Burkina Faso, has been interpreted as a response to growing anti-French sentiment, particularly among younger Ivorians who sympathize with revolutionary leaders like Traoré. Why a coup seems plausible. Historical precedent. Ivory Coast has a history of political violence, including a 2010 to 2011 conflict that killed thousands after disputed elections. Military sympathies. Analysts note widespread sympathy among Ivory Coast's youth and some military elements for the anti-Western stances of leaders in Mali and Burkina Faso, which could inspire dissent. Public frustration. Ouattara's perceived alignment with France and accusations of manipulating state institutions to sideline opponents like Thiam have eroded his legitimacy among younger Ivorians, who make up a significant portion of the population. Counterpoints. Ouattara's government has maintained stability, with the president chairing a cabinet meeting and attending public events in May 2025, dispelling rumors of his absence. The Ivorian military's loyalty to Ouattara, bolstered by economic growth in the cocoa sector, reduces the immediate likelihood of a coup. However, the combination of electoral uncertainty and regional anti-Western currents keeps the threat alive. Impact. While no coup has occurred, the rumors underscore Ivory Coast's vulnerability to political instability, particularly as regional neighbors embrace military rule and anti-imperialist rhetoric. Ouattara's handling of the upcoming election will be critical to averting unrest. 3. Alassane Ouattara under pressure. President Alassane Ouattara, in power since 2010, faces mounting pressure as Ivory Coast navigates domestic and regional challenges. His leadership is increasingly scrutinized amid electoral tensions, regional rivalries, and shifting geopolitical alignments. Sources of pressure. Electoral controversy. Ouattara's potential fourth-term bid, despite constitutional limits, has sparked accusations of power consolidation. The barring of Tidjane Thiam, a prominent opposition figure, from the October 2025 election on nationality grounds echoes past controversies, as Ouattara himself faced similar challenges in the 2000s due to his Burkinabe heritage. Anti-French backlash. Ouattara's perceived closeness to France, a former colonial power, contrasts with the anti-French sentiment sweeping West Africa. The withdrawal of French forces in January 2025 was partly a response to public anger, but critics still view Ouattara as a Western ally, unlike Traoré or Mali's junta leaders. Regional tensions. Burkina Faso's accusations that Ivory Coast harbored coup plotters in April 2025 have strained relations. Ouattara's support for ECOWAS's interventionist stance in Niger's 2023 coup further alienated him from the AES countries, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, which see him as a Western proxy. Security threats. Rising jihadist attacks from Mali and Burkina Faso threaten Ivory Coast's northern borders, exposing perceived weaknesses in Ouattara's security strategy and fueling criticism of his reliance on Western partnerships. Public perception. Ouattara's critics accuse him of authoritarianism, citing his use of state institutions to marginalize opponents and his reluctance to step down. Younger Ivorians, inspired by Traoré's defiance, view Ouattara as emblematic of an older, pro-Western elite. However, his supporters credit him with economic stability and infrastructure development, particularly in the cocoa sector. which remains a cornerstone of Ivory Coast's economy. Impact. Ouattara's ability to navigate these pressures will determine Ivory Coast's stability. His decision on the 2025 election and response to regional anti-Western currents could either reinforce his authority or exacerbate tensions, potentially inviting further unrest. 4. Africa rising against Western control. Across West Africa, a wave of anti-Western sentiment has fueled political upheavals, military coups, and a reassertion of national sovereignty. This trend, often framed as Africa Rising, reflects frustration with historical colonial legacies and modern economic dependencies. Key developments: expulsion of Western forces. Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and Chad have expelled French troops since 2020, citing their ineffectiveness against jihadist insurgencies and neo-colonial overreach. Ivory Coast followed suit in January 2025, marking a regional shift. Rejection of Western institutions. Leaders like Traoré have rejected IMF and World Bank loans, criticizing their conditionalities as exploitative. Burkina Faso's nationalization of gold mining reflects a broader push for resource control, pivot to new allies. Countries like Burkina Faso have turned to Russia, Cuba, and Venezuela for partnerships, seeking alternatives to Western dominance. Traoré's 2025 meeting with Putin underscored this shift, though it raises questions about new dependencies, social media amplification. Anti-Western narratives gain traction online, with viral content portraying leaders like Traoré as liberators. A 2024 deepfake video of Traoré calling for African unity spread widely on TikTok and WhatsApp, illustrating the role of digital platforms in shaping public sentiment. Critical perspective. While framed as resistance to Western control, these movements often rely on populist rhetoric and military rule, which may not deliver sustainable development. Critics argue that leaders like Traoré exploit anti-imperialist sentiment to consolidate power without addressing root causes like poverty or insecurity. The pivot to Russia, for instance, risks replacing one form of external influence with another, as seen in allegations of Russian involvement in Burkina Faso's gold industry. Impact. The Africa Rising narrative reflects genuine grievances, but faces challenges in translating rhetoric into tangible progress. The shift away from Western influence could reshape geopolitics, but its success depends on addressing internal governance and security issues. 5. Pan-African unity and resistance. Pan-Africanism, a movement for continental unity and self-determination, has gained renewed momentum through leaders like Traoré and regional alliances like the AS. This resurgence is driven by shared resistance to neocolonialism and a desire for economic and political autonomy. Manifestations of Pan-Africanism, Alliance of Sahel States, AES formed in 2023 by Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. The AES aims to counter Western-backed ECOWAS and prioritize regional security and economic cooperation. Protests in April 2025 across Ghana, Liberia, and Burkina Faso under the slogan, Hands Off ES, reflect grassroots support. Traoré's rhetoric. Traoré's speeches, invoking Sankara's legacy and slogans like, Fatherland or Death, we will win, inspire Pan-African solidarity. His call for African states to reject imperialist puppets resonates with youth seeking dignity and self-reliance. Grassroots movements. Solidarity protests in April 2025, denouncing foreign interference in Burkina Faso, highlight a growing Pan-African consciousness. Groups like the Socialist Movement of Ghana frame Traoré as a symbol of resistance against neocolonialism. Challenges. Pan-African unity faces obstacles, including fragmented national interests and reliance on military regimes. Critics argue that coups, while anti-imperialist in rhetoric, undermine democratic progress and risk elite capture. Security challenges, with jihadist groups controlling significant territory in the Sahel, also hinder regional cooperation. Impact. The push for Pan-African unity strengthens regional solidarity, but requires balancing revolutionary ideals with practical governance. The AES and leaders like Traoré could redefine Africa's geopolitical landscape if they address internal divisions and external pressures. 6. Burkina Faso's bold political moves. Since Traoré's 2022 coup, Burkina Faso has pursued a radical agenda to assert sovereignty and reshape its political and economic landscape. Key moves: military realignment, expelling French troops in 2023, and aligning with Russia for security support, including a 2025 meeting with Putin, marks a significant geopolitical shift. Economic sovereignty. Nationalizing gold mining and rejecting IMF/World Bank loans aim to reclaim control over resources and reduce foreign influence. Extended military rule. In May 2024, Traoré extended his junta's rule by 5 years, citing ongoing insecurity. This move, while criticized as a power grab, was framed as necessary to stabilize the country. Sankara's legacy. Traoré has revived Sankara's revolutionary imagery, naming streets after him and building a mausoleum to keep the flame of the revolution alive. Outcomes and risks. These moves have galvanized support, with thousands rallying in Ouagadougou in April 2025 after a foiled coup attempt. However, persistent jihadist violence, controlling 40% of the country, and reports of civilian killings by the military undermine Traoré's promises of security. His authoritarian measures, including arrests and media crackdowns, also raise concerns about democratic backsliding. Impact. Burkina Faso's bold moves position it as a leader in the anti-Western shift but risk internal instability if security and governance challenges persist. Traoré's ability to deliver on revolutionary promises will determine his regime's longevity. 7. Popular support for revolutionary African leaders. Revolutionary leaders like Traoré enjoy significant support, particularly among Africa's youth, who see them as challengers to a status quo marked by corruption and foreign influence. Sources of support. Anti-Western sentiment. Leaders like Traoré tap into frustration with Western powers, blamed for economic exploitation and ineffective security partnerships. Protests in April 2025, with slogans like "Down with Imperialism," reflect this sentiment. Youth appeal. Traoré's youth, 37, and charismatic rhetoric resonate with Africa's under 35 population, who view him as a symbol of hope and defiance. Social media amplifies this, with viral content spreading his message globally. Sankara's legacy. Comparisons to Thomas Sankara, who championed self-reliance and anti-imperialism, bolster Traoré's image. Supporters see him as continuing Sankara's unfinished revolution. Regional solidarity. Support extends beyond Burkina Faso, with rallies in Ghana, Liberia, and even London in 2025, reflecting a broader Pan-African admiration for revolutionary leaders. Critical perspective. While popular, this support is not universal. Critics argue that revolutionary leaders often prioritize rhetoric over results, with Traoré's regime failing to curb jihadist violence or improve living conditions. Human rights abuses and extended military rule also alienate some, raising questions about the sustainability of their popularity. Impact. The surge in support for revolutionary leaders reflects a desire for change, but risks being undermined by governance failures and external pressures. Sustaining this support requires delivering on promises of security, development, and true independence. Conclusion. Ibrahim Traoré's growing Pan-African influence, rooted in anti-Western actions and Sankara's legacy, has made him a symbol of resistance, though his authoritarian measures and security challenges invite skepticism. In Ivory Coast, coup rumors highlight Alassane Ouattara's precarious position amid electoral tensions and regional anti-Western currents. The broader narrative of Africa rising and Pan-African unity reflects genuine aspirations for sovereignty, but faces hurdles in governance and new dependencies. Burkina Faso's bold moves under Traoré inspire hope but risk instability, while popular support for revolutionary leaders underscores a generational shift that could reshape Africa's future if it balances rhetoric with results. If you'd like me to generate a chart to visualize any specific data, e.g., coup attempts, protest frequency, or regional alliances, please confirm. And I can create one using a supported chart type like a bar or pie chart. Alternatively, I can deepen the analysis on any specific section or provide further details on sources. Let me know your preference.